Carlos Nelson with Cascade Media Group. And tonight we have a young man that's running for the state senate, Mr. Derron Black. I've known him for probably 7 to possibly even 10 years. I watched him come up uh, in Kansas City as it relates to me knowing him as a figure, uh, and now he's running for state senate. Welcome to the show, Deron.
Mr. Nelson, thank you. I appreciate you for having me on.
All right, so I have to give you my tagline. Let's go back to kindergarten and tell our audience a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, what schools you went to, and possibly some of the mentors that help you develop into who you are now. And then we'll go into what your platform is and why you're running.
All right. Well, thank you. And again, I appreciate for you giving me the opportunity and allowing me to do this. And going back to kindergarten, man, it is a long time ago, but yet and still, I was privileged to go to what I consider to be one of the historic neighborhood schools where I come from, 25th and College. I went to Phyllis Wheatley in kindergarten in the Washington Wheatley neighborhood. My mom went to Phyllis Wheatley, and pretty much all of the folks that ended up going to Lincoln. I didn't go to Lincoln, but Phyllis Wheatley is where I started out. And from Phyllis Wheatley, I ended up going to Central Middle and ended up going to Westport High School, and East was the last high school that I officially attended because I ended up actually getting into a little bit of trouble and being housed at Northwestern Regional Youth Center as a juvenile in juvenile detention. But I got my GED. I got my GED at 16 years old, and once I was let out of Northwestern Regional, I tried to go back to school and enrolled in Penn Valley. Still hadn't gotten myself together, so I had to join the United States Navy, and I was in the Navy for a little bit, and then after I got out of the Navy, I was stationed. I was living in Norfolk, Virginia. Had a divorce, came back to Kansas City about 2004, and I had my son in 2006, working, and I was taking my time working at Ford Motor Company with my father, and being a third generation auto worker. So I worked worked with the good old boys at UAW 249, as they like to say. And after the Great Recession in 2008, I had gotten laid off at that time and went back to Ford and thought that, I need to start figuring out some ways to get out of the auto manufacturing industry, because I didn't see it as being a viable situation for myself. So I started doing a lot of self-study. Once I got out of the Navy, I was an information system technician when I was in the Navy. But once I got out of the Navy, I told myself that I wanted to get into something where, I could really excel without having to be, burdened with the technical, things like, computers and stuff like that. I did it while I was in the Navy, and I was pretty good at it, but it wasn't something that I was really passionate about. And I ended up getting into sales. And so I read a lot of books. I read a lot of self-help books, read a lot of marketing books. So once I decided, I'm going to go back, get my education, start learning a little bit. Like I said, I've always kind of been one of those folks that, just picked up a book and just started reading for myself. But working on that Ford line, I started listening to a lot of podcasts and actually enrolled in MCC. And so I was taking classes at Penn Valley. I was taking classes at Maple Woods and taking classes at Blue River. And around 2012 is when I first started getting into politics. I first ran for office in 2012 as a Democrat for state legislator. And it was about 2016 where I finally decided to go go back to school, finish my education, and enrolled in UMKC, and actually ended up getting 2 degrees from UMKC. I got a degree in liberal arts, or a bachelor's in liberal arts, and a bachelor's in political science, and a minor in economics. And basically, throughout that time, I picked up a lot of different mentors. But one of the mentors that I really appreciated, while they were around and while they were here, and God rest his soul, is Brother Alex Harris. Brother Alex Harris in 2012 took a liking to some of the things that we were doing, with Alpha Male Nation. That's when I became familiar with you, because in 2013, I had a little protest. They kind of got the city ruffled a little bit when I took the stage and wanted to speak out on some of the things as they pertain to economics and workforce development in 2013. But Alex Harris was a very critical mentor of mine as a
Alex
relates.
was like my daddy.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, yeah. So you understand, Mr. Nelson?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and Alex would jumped on the tables at the meeting with Jay Dunn and all of them about us getting our fair share.
Right. So yeah, Mr. Harris poured into me and the organization that we had at the time, Alpha Male Nation, and then also another gentleman that was very instrumental in my development, I would say, is trying to learn what business is like, and that's Brother Samuel Sharif. He belonged to the masjid over at Ellen, or yeah, not Ellen Shore. Yeah, Ellen Shore Masjid. So I have a Muslim back. Well, I am a Muslim, and so just having that gentleman in my life at that particular time, with him coming from the Nation of Islam, and having his development and his growth in Islam, allowed me to get a perspective on Islam as it pertains to African Americans, and that was really critical and essential. And then another mentor that I would definitely give recognition to is my economics professor UMKC, Dr. Karen Vorse. Dr. Vorse was my macroeconomics professor. She considers herself to be a what they call a neoclassical economist, and so it was a very rich exchange and ideas, and our relationship end up developing into a friendship. To this day I'm still friends with Dr. Force. So that was some of the mentors that I had, and but as far as education, my education was rocky, and so I always consider the school of hard knocks to be where I really got my education. But I did get a couple degrees from UMKC also, though.
Well, to me, that I know when I met you, I didn't know that you had been in the Navy. I didn't know any of that. All of that was pre me. I think I met you around 212,
Yeah.
and I can say this is my experience. I'm talking about life experience. Uh, how I was is not how I am now, and I wouldn't let my past dictate my future.
Right.
But it's all in one's mind. So
Right.
now let's talk about what your platform is and why you're running.
So my platform is basically faith, family, and economics, or in education. I always like to put the education as the overall umbrella. And the reason why I'm running specifically is that I feel that we haven't seen the type of economic growth that we need to see in our community to bring down some of the other the other things that are happening here in Kansas City and even across the state. Being a state senator, or running as a state senator, or being a state senator in the legislature, is one of the most important positions that you could have. And I think that through my personal evolution, I'm running as a Republican now. I've ran as a Democrat before, but now I consider myself coming back home, considering that the Republican Party was established by Frederick Douglass and people from the abolitionist movement. So, looking at, like I said, my evolution and growth, and looking at it from an economic situation, I believe that we've taken our eye off the ball as it relates to the economics and economic development here in Kansas City, and having a situation where we see the community thriving because of the situation that we're able to create and generate more economics.
Uh, do you have any specific plan that you would like to see implemented? And when you talk about economics, that's a wide subject. I'd like to bring up. I don't know whether you know Mr. Sam Dowdy, but he's a general contractor, and we talk about the community, and there's no workforce. There hasn't been any workforce development over the last 30 years per se. And even when a Black company can get a contract, where do you get the workforce from?
Right.
And so when you say uh, what your platform is, would you go a little deeper? And what I'd like to know, would you support uh, building and supporting an organization that uh, is ready to start from scratch? Because from Cascade Media's point of view, uh, most of our adults, if they were going to fix something, they'd have fixed it.
Right. Right. No, brother Nelson, I get you. So yeah, I think basically from what I've seen personally myself and from my studying, it's it's a miracle in my opinion that we see the small amount of business that still exists on the east side of, and again, when I talk about business economic development, I come from a very micro level, so when we talk about these things, I am speaking on from the point of the individual and building up from there, because I think that's the most effective and the most appropriate economic situation. And so I know that the term economics covers a broad spectrum. So one of the things that I can tell you that I would like to see done specifically is the fulfillment of the legislation of House Bill 640. Some of my current mentors have pointed me in the direction and have made me come to understand that we have legislation in place, that the legislation itself has not, or the laws itself hasn't been fulfilled, and we have missed out on a very huge opportunity. And so me myself, like I said, I grew up on
What does
25th.
that bill entail? My audience don't. I know I don't know.
It's the recognition of a Juneteenth as being the Emancipation Day, and it was passed in 2003, and it was actually written in a way where the Juneteenth Jazz and Heritage Festival and Memorial actually has a commission that's associated with the legislation that is supposed to be the vehicle that directs the resources for Juneteenth to be recognized all across the state. Now, if you look at the Juneteenth Heritage and Festival situation down in New Orleans, it is a major economic resource for the community, because it's generating over hundreds of millions of dollars in about 10 days times. I mean, and like, I think that at this point, that they were able to even buy out the Essence Festival. And so when we look at, especially the community here in Kansas City in particular, right, we have a over concentration of performing arts and entertainers. And when you look at the type of components of like your job market or your labor market, well, we have a overrepresentation of performing artists. And I think that goes back to the heritage and the culture of Kansas City as it has related to music. I know a lot of people that have been in the music business here in Kansas City. I know a lot of cats that's even still trying to get into the music music business here in Kansas City. But yet and still, Kansas City, I don't think is recognized as far as it pertains to the industry and being a factor in generating the type of economics that we should see coming from a city that has such a heritage and such a legacy as it relates to music and entertainment. And so one of the things that you find that's even associated with HB 640 is that the commission in itself, you have seating at on the commission that is supposed to be designated for folks to participate from the Department of Economic Development. You have participation from the Department of Housing, or not housing, but education. And you also have participation coming from the Department of Natural Resources and Preservation. So when we look at those things and how those things intertwine with the Black community here in Kansas City, we see that we are actually suffering from us not fulfilling the legislation that can be used as an economic engine for Kansas City and
Well,
across the state.
tell me this. See,
Yeah.
you stated that you were Republican, and most of these state legislators, legislation, they are dominated by Republicans. And so when you say that we have these things on the books, they still got to pass it.
Right, right. Well, that's what makes it such an interesting situation and such an opportunity that we have in supporting this campaign, because the legislation was actually passed under Republican administrations. And one of the things that we even know historically, Juneteenth in itself was passed under a Republic. The Emancipation Proclamation was done by a Republican president. And so it's a shame that we actually saw the commission, basically die out under a Democratic administration, because it was Jay Nixon that actually established the commission, but he never fulfilled the law and actually had the commission seated. So one of the things that we see is that, okay, Republicans have been responsible for passing the legislation, but at the end of the day, I would claim that it's been Democrats that have not actually fulfill the requirements of getting the legislation properly funded and with the appropriations necessary. Like I said before, if you look at the situation down in New Orleans and you look at their Juneteenth Heritage and Jazz Festival celebration, we're looking at over $400 and so million based off of studies that have demonstrated that hundreds and thousands of people come to those areas. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking anything that we're doing, on 18th and Vine as it relates to Juneteenth. We have several thousand people that might come to our festival and participate as far as vendors and things like that. But when you create a situation where you have hundreds and thousands of people and you are putting people in position to generate, economics as from small vendors, the guy selling the hot dog, the man selling the t-shirt,
But
then you're really,
let
I'm
me
sorry.
cut you off for a minute.
Yeah.
All that requires infrastructure. If you're looking at Vine Street, that
Yeah.
requires infrastructure and investment, and
Yes.
uh, that's a that's been a tough nut to crack here in Kansas City for
Right.
some time. And I try to be impartial on these interviews per se, but I think our network and our programs are known for being candid. And I'm looking at the American Jazz Museum right now because I'm like, what have they done? And it's been a revolving door around something that is our actual heritage. And, where's the money going? And I don't even want to go there. So what's the next thing that you're concerned with? Because we're going to end this interview in about 5 minutes. Tell our audience what else that you want to make them aware of about your campaign or about yourself.
Well, we definitely need more people to get involved in the campaign. So please go to my website, dblack4mo. That's DBlackFormo.org, and you can sign up to volunteer. We need canvassers. We definitely need more money. So if you even want to donate 10, 20, $15, we would definitely appreciate that as well. But one of the things about our campaign is that, you know, a lot of folks, I believe they don't benefit from having, you know, a real competition and a real competitive campaign where you're actually having to hold the people accountable for the things that they're saying. And so that's one of the things that we're bringing to the table. As like I said before, the economic development piece is crucial. And when we look at economics, economics is about people. And so when we're talking about putting more money in folks' pocket, then basically, you know, whether if you go with me or if you go with the other person, that should be the thing that we're focused on. How much of money are you putting in my pocket? Because when it's all said and done, your vote is about business. It's a straight up transaction. And one of those things that you should be getting from those transactions, that you should be getting from your government, because the government is yours, is that you should be getting things that can help out your situation in a tangible way. I know a lot of the feel good things, you know, are great and all, but when you're starting to neglect the business component of what you should be getting from your politics, then I think that you're missing the boat. So, you know, right now, that's what it is that we're trying to do. We're trying to give people a choice where they're getting value, not just from the campaign, but when it's all said and done, you'll still have something where you can hold your legislator accountable, because we're trying to bring up some issues that haven't been talked about. And it definitely, when we talk about the economics, as you even said yourself, you know, even as it relates to 18th and Vine, we've missed the boat on a lot of things. And so right now, if we're talking about the next generation and the future that's come, they need to be exposed to the things that can help them actually do create, you know, transformative situations for their lives. And I think, you know, having a clear understanding of what you should be getting from your government, you know, is the way to go. So that's what we're doing with the campaign. So I definitely hope people look me up, reach out. You know, you can even give me a phone call if you want, 816-372-7377. That's my personal cell phone number. Give me a call. Let's talk about it. And I appreciate you, Brother Nelson, for giving me this opportunity.
Well, if you go to What's Up Kansas City's website and you look above the What's Up Kansas City logo, it says About Us came into fruition in 2012, and we came to give everybody a voice.
Right on.
You know, it's not
And
about,
you've always done that for me. I appreciate you for doing that. You've always done that. Yes,
you
sir.
know, the underdog, the top dog, and the middle dog. Everybody, we like to think that we represent uh, people of color on the digital spectrum, and uh, all of us have our biases, but we've got to learn that we have to come together on certain issues that uh, can move our community forward. So,
Right.
with that being said, uh, as we close, when you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself.
That's right.
This is brought to you by Kansas City Business Association, working to improve our community.